Hi, everyone. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. As everyone gets settled, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, say hi. We are gathering here today for the second of an ongoing series of conversations on MetaTraversal and on interoperability between all of our beautiful worlds across the metaverse. So thank you for joining us here today. We are going to be starting in just a few moments, but feel free to say hi, introduce yourselves in the chat. My name is Evo Heyning. For those of you I have not had a chance to interact with yet before, hello. I am one of the three co-chairs at Open Metaverse Interoperability. I am also a creator, a producer. I have worked in interactive media for about 25 years and in virtual worlds for about 16. I worked on the Metaverse Roadmap V1 in 2005. And then I jumped into AR in 2012. So I have been a producer, game creator. I have worked with communities and have built communities across worlds. I am, like many of you, I wear multiple hats. I spend some of my time engineering. I co-founded a special effects company in hardware, and I do a lot of the thinking about how our worlds come together, and that includes immersive web and spatial web. That includes software and hardware. That includes VR and AR. We are obviously a very diverse community here, and we want to reflect that diversity in the conversations that we're going to be having here about how to move fluidly across the metaverse. So I want to welcome you for the second in an ongoing series of conversations we are calling MetaTraversal. Once again, I'm Evo Heyning. I am one of the three co-chairs at Open Metaverse Interoperability. I will put our URL in the chat for you in a few minutes. It's omigroup.org. And some of these conversations do happen on our GitHub and our Discord. We are an open source community. And I have been honored to join Ben and to join Neil, Tiri, and a number of folks here to really explore how we can build connecting tissue across our industry that moves us toward interoperability. And so while I hold a very wide lens for what interoperability can look like, and that includes lots of different types of transformational experiences that could be sharing experiences of different types, we are here to specifically talk about MetaTraversal and to think about how do we move fluidly between our worlds together. Now, that includes everything that's happening in augmented reality, as well as what's happening in virtual worlds, in VR, everything that happens in the XR headset, as well as what's moving forward with smart glasses. So we want you to keep that broad frame of reference as you listen to our speakers today. We are going to start with a short introduction that includes a little video from our last session. So for those of you who weren't here, this is the second of three conversations that we charted out this fall specifically to look at MetaTraversal and interoperability. So in our first conversation, we had folks from both independent development and from game platforms, from a handful of different types of perspectives come together to share their visions for what these portals between worlds could look like, and some of the experimentation that we're already doing, both in independent communities like OMI, but also within some of the R&D labs that you also sponsor and feature. So with that said, hi and welcome. It's great to see you all here. If you haven't had a chance to say hi, please just go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. And as always, these sessions are being recorded. We will have you on mute, but we do welcome your participation in the chat as we are going to listen to a number of fantastic speakers today. So I'm going to bring up Ben, my amazing producer, colleague, and friend, host of the WebXR Summit and the Polys. And Ben has been our fearless producer for this series. Thank you, Ben, for joining us today. And Ben, you've compiled a short sample of what we worked on in the last MetaTraversal conversation, the one that we first called MetaDavos. And I was wondering if you could just sort of summarize and crystallize that conversation for us.
Yes, so I distilled 90 minutes of conversation down to some of the most valuable sound bites for the benefit of the folks that weren't here the last time. So I'll just let that speak for itself. Give me a second and I will get this up and running. And here we go.
In order to unlock the potential of the metaverse, there needs to be interoperability. That goes beyond just taking your avatar and digital items across different apps and experiences, which we are already building an API to support.
This is a start of a conversation that we want to bring together over the next few months, and that includes all of our friends at different platforms, all of our friends at hardware companies, and all of those social graph endeavors that are happening both independently and within your teams.
In the same way we got together to standardize hyperlinks for the World Wide Web or deep links and protocol handlers into various levels of our software stack, we need to come together to build the hyperlinks of the metaverse.
So a lot of the work that we're doing right now is trying to implement all of these efforts to create a standard experience for our users.
Because we all believe passionately that wide cooperation is going to be the only way to build the metaverse. And so it's a pleasure and an honor to be here amongst like minds. And of course, cooperation works best when there is effective communication. And so a big shout out to Ben and Evo, who have taken initiative here to bring us all together and create this opportunity, I think, to discover how we can best coordinate our activities and our efforts. And the metaverse is going to need many things to interoperate on a scale that we've never attempted before as a whole industry. So a group like this could help us all construct a map of standards and initiatives around the industry so we can find the right connect points and identify gaps where no one has the ball, and I'm sure there are some. And I think an effective way to pick some specific goals that we can work towards together to keep things grounded and productive.
I think the biggest challenge right now is that we are at a place where we need to get enough adoption and people building these experiences to sink all of the effort in to solve the next set of problems. Like, how do you deal with having an open and shared like geography that somehow no one owns? Like, these are very hard questions, and they're actually shared values, I think, across this group and a lot of the people here.
For the XR and the metaverse industry, if there could be more collaborations between IEEE's VR and AR standards and activities and other SDOs, all those standards are collectively building blocks that we would need to create an open and promising XR and metaverse ecosystem.
Great group. I love the vision. I love the energy. I love the values. And I also love the collaboration among standards groups. And I've seen the theme already thus far today.
Try to help the community with, the conversation around the open metaverse, because we believe at Epic, and you've heard Tim Sweeney, being very, very clear about the necessity of it to be open. There's a lot of opportunity, and we have a bias for execution more than for conversation. So I'm here to try to understand, how we get pragmatic and start to do things that actually make a difference. So, so I look forward to engage and working with you guys and make sure that we keep the angle around, small wins and getting shit done.
FutureWeb will continue to support WebXR and any interoperability initiatives related to Metaverse, which can help secure innovation, user experience, and business opportunities for wider XR industry.
Well, how do we embed human rights into these protocols from the lowest level?
Wow, Kent, we're going to breathe for a second and just absorb all of that. Wow.
Being able to move freely from VR apps to WebXR and back is a fundamental requirement of an open future in XR, and also a foundation upon which of most of the other issues of the metaverse we want, such as privacy, security, commerce, and so on, will be built. But that makes it imperative to start this conversation and bring the appropriate players together now to harness the metaverse's greatest potential for humans without repeating mistakes of the past.
So one of the issues that comes up with portals is, first of all, it's very complicated. You need to solve almost every issue with interoperability to make portals work well. Maybe it's a good starting point, but it's also a lot to bite off. See and hear across these portals, it opens up a lot of a lot of cans of worms for how do we deal with the issues that arise from activity across the portals.
For continued leadership in figuring out how to bring these people together and how to figure out how to connect the constellations, as Neil was describing earlier.
The things that we need to, challenge people on, and also support, them thinking about it, because some people are just going to be reactive and not proactive. We need to create proactive attitudes about these issues.
All right, so that's where we begin. Thank you, Ben, for helping us summarize. And we're going to bring on Christine Perey, who is a fantastic leader. We have been mesmerized by her talks at various conferences. And Christine, I believe we're going to spotlight you and give you a few moments. You have a few slides that help us sort of look at these constellation of standards, as Neil put it, I think. Let's go ahead and make those full screen slides, and we will give you the floor. Thank you, Christine.
Do you see my slides in full screen?
I see you now. You look great.
Thank you. Okay, great. Well, thanks for this opportunity. Like others said, this is a great and exciting time. So I'm just going to as you said, briefly go through some of the things. So if we agree that we need interoperability, the question is how. So I'm going to kind of move the conversation from, is it a good thing, to how do we achieve it? And so that's pretty much what I want to share with you. I think that there's really three big tools. They're tool sets that we can use. And so this is an example of an industry group or a community that cares and is very passionate about a specific topic or a specific part of the metaverse, the portal between worlds. And so industry groups, open standards, and open source. This isn't the only community, and fortunately, actually, there's quite a variety of communities that we could look at, and I think that we need to keep in touch and communicate between those communities and between the communities and the other balls in the air. And so each one can create requirements for the areas that are most important to them. And then those requirements may go into standards, or they may produce open source implementations. And this is one of Neil's slides that I really like. I don't don't read the whole thing. I'm just saying that they are quite different in their architecture and the needs that they meet, and how they reach, or how they help us reach interoperability. I recently gave a tutorial and with Neil and Muriel and Bill Bernstein. We gave a tutorial about these tools for interoperability. So rather than going through all of those, I thought I'd just share with you that there is a resource I'm keeping alive where you can go to learn about some open source project that specifically address the augmented reality side of this equation, those parts of the ecosystem that deal with the physical world. And I also want to share that in the standards side, there's quite a lot of different activities going on in 8 or 9 or more standards development organizations. So SDO are on the left-hand side of this table, the working group and the specifications. And all of this information is also on that same tutorial website. There's some video that you can watch for more details if you want. And all of these specifications in the right-hand side are linked to the pages where you can go to find out more. Again, we've already said that it's a constellation of standards that address different domains, and there are risks because there are so many different standards, and some of them are working on the same thing. So we need to untangle those or do what we can to reduce the risks. And I think that's really around engagement. And that's what this ecosystem and this community and these meetings are all about. So, these are how we can get started, get further along, how we can make progress as individuals is to make sure that we understand who in our communities or in our companies care about standardization, what they have done or not done, and what they need, and maybe what they don't need. And then we need to contribute. We've got to go from the internal sort of assessments to the outward actions. So that's what I wanted to share. I hope that was enough.
Fantastic, Christine. And I know that you have been contributing to a number of these groups. For example, Rene's work over at IEEE that we're going to hear from later on. On one of your slides, you had needs to significantly increase coordination efforts.
This one.
How do we get there? I would love to hear your thoughts on how we get there.
Right. Well, there's a few things. One is actually they're pretty much on this slide. So we need to have members that occupy multiple groups so that they can share that information in a safe and clean way without exposing intellectual property or taking measures that are inappropriate. And one of the ways of making sure that information gets across between groups is to have liaison agreements. And I had a slide at AWE that showed as an example what Kronos Group has been doing, thanks to a great deal of the effort from Neil. But there are these legal structures that help us to ensure that the memberships and the properties, the specifications are protected, but at the same time making sure they can reference each other. We call that normative references. So many standards have informational text and normative text. And the normative text is what you have to comply with in order to be fully implementing that specification. And the complexity, the problem of this is that there are different levels in the stack. So there are communication layer specifications. Within a device, there are standards that help content sort of not be customized for each specific device. So there's definitely, I think we're going to need, as been mentioned before, a map. It's just that it's going to maybe be a 3D map.
Yes, and that's what we're working on at OMI. So we can go into that a little bit later as well. But figuring out how we do these meta maps and map toward interoperability. We've been doing these conversations both on Discord and on Twitter Spaces to do the spec for that map building. And there are, I think, like 35 or 40 different qualifiers around sharing of assets, or what we're talking about today with MetaTraversal. This is obviously very complex. So how we do the sharing of information long-term after today, it seems vital that we figure that part of this puzzle out, how we stay in communication together and how we stay in tandem, how we move together in this industry.
It takes a lot of time and a lot of patience, I have to say. My experience in these working groups is not everything's happening at the same speed. And if there are not enough people engaged, it's not likely to turn out well. So the efforts are, it's our responsibility to get engaged.
Absolutely. And I believe we're going to be bringing up another speaker who represents another piece of this puzzle next. So Christine, number one, thank you. Thank you for helping us really set the frame and help us understand all of these connections. And I believe we're bringing up Rene next. So as we begin thinking about the constellation of standards and how all of our connection points might fit together, I hope that you will hold Christine's work in your mind. Perey.com, I put that as our resource there. If you want to find any of her slides, again, I believe those are there. And Rene, we are going to be passing the floor to you. And I hope that you can share with us a little bit more about points of participation, because you've been doing some fantastic work organizing
Ben asked me to take part here, so I said, yep, let's do it, because standards are important, especially an open standard for the interop in the metaverse. So I fully agree with the whole sentiment of this initiative here, and thanks for having me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things called the real world metaverse, and a little bit about virtual presence and the whole issues with, you know, transferring those between different metaverse spaces. So my name's Rene. I lead spatial computing at Reply, and I'm also basically a Microsoft Regional Director on MVP, which are awards that Microsoft provides to experts in the field. So I'm very much related to Microsoft content, but I don't work for Microsoft, right? Also advisor for some other associations as well. So when we look at the metaverse, I think we have to first of all think about the whole different types, and like, you know, it's everything and nothing at the moment. The whole terminology is so floating. So I try to, you know, put it into like different overlapping use cases and target audiences. So what I see from the research and looking into the market at the moment is like consumers probably will tend to be more in this meta world, right? Where you're fully virtual in this full virtual world. Although there will be also overlap with the real world metaverse, right? Things like Niantic is building, or Snap with their connected lenses and so on. But I think that's even stronger in the enterprise world, where you can have, for example, anchored content in the real world, which can be connected to another layer, if you will, like an IoT layer, right? So you could basically find all your IoT devices and they can talk with each other. But of course, enterprise will also have virtual metaverse spaces like our friends here at Spatial.io are building, or Microsoft with their Mesh for Teams stuff, right, where you have this immersive spaces. What we can also say is basically what I'm most excited about is this kind of real world metaverse, where we have this digital twin of our physical world, and we can, you know, anchor this kind of virtual content in the real world. And not just being in this full virtual world, but really taking advantage of our physical world and bringing in these kind of experiences into the meta world, and having, you know, connectivity and connectors to various, you know, devices like drones, robotics. It will also play a big role, right? Because they all share this kind of common real world metaverse map, this kind of digital twin of the world, right? And if we overlay that, we get into this kind of real world metaverse. Actually, if you look at like the Microsoft kind of view, if you saw an interview maybe with Satya Nadella and Harvard Business Review recently, he made actually a really nice quote, which I put here, which I think is beautifully said, right? Is like, as embedding the real world into computing. This is what it's all about. Like, you know, making the real world part of computation. This is, I think, what is the fundamental part on the whole metaverse here. What Microsoft is doing there, they're developing this Mesh platform, which is a kind of a development platform where your developers can build custom applications on top of, but they are built on a common stack, which means they have, like, for example, you have multi-user synchronization here, which you can see in this little demo video here, where I did a session with my colleague who's based on the West. I'm based in Germany. He's based on the West Coast of the US, right? So we have 9-hour time zone difference. And you can, if you're using this Mesh platform, you get this multi-user synchronization already, which is very hard. If you see the high five we're doing there, there's really no delay. You get like a lot of other features for free, cross-platform also capabilities. And this is basically the building block. This is the basis, the Microsoft Mesh platform, for building other applications on top of, which can then interop with each other, of course, right? But the issue will be, of course, like, you know, then you're in this kind of Microsoft Mesh world. And so what could be the interop between other kind of metaverse solutions? And that is, of course, a big challenge, which I think has to be solved at some point. You might have seen some of the stuff that Microsoft is doing with Mesh for Teams. As you know, Microsoft Teams, this collaboration tool, they have around 250 million users worldwide. And so with the integration of bringing Mesh for Teams, you can basically provide this, what I call the gateway into the metaverse, right? It will enable a lot of people that would typically not put on a VR headset or anything, or go into these kind of virtual worlds to become part of these kind of corporate metaverse spaces. And you can be represented as an avatar, of course, and you have these corporate spaces. where you can all work together. But basically what I think is a big challenge as well is not just the connectivity between these different platforms, but even more importantly, your virtual presence. Like you as a human will be represented as a digital human, as an avatar mainly, right? In these kind of times. But that is a big problem because you need to take those with you, right? It's your virtual presence. It's how you get identified. It's basically the profile picture of the future. And the challenge is, how can we make sure that we have this common framework, this common standard, especially for these avatars and your virtual presence? Because like in each platform, you need to build your own avatar again and again and again, right? Which is tiring, but also most importantly, your representation, you as a digital human, need to be recognized on all these platforms, right? And that's very important. And I think this is where really blockchain and NFT can play quite a significant role.
Potentially, yes. And there are some fantastic ideas about what that can look like coming forward. And my apologies for confusing your intro. I have put your URL in our chat, and I hope people will follow up with you on Twitter as well. I think you're making some very salient points. Thank you so much, Rene. And Dominique,
thank you.
Have you up next. And thank you so much for your patience as we do our best to transition here. Zoom will. So thank you, Dominique, for joining us. And thank you to all of you for your patience today. Dominique?
Yes, thank you for having me. So I'm Dominique Hazael-Massieux. I'm from WCC, where I'm in charge of our work around XR, and in particular, what we've called the immersive web vision that we've heard quite a few people allude to via WebXR and so on. And I guess you heard last time from Chris Wilson, the co-chair of the Immersive Web Community Group and the working group on some of our technical work in this space. And since he already gave some insight there, I won't go much more into the detail, but I guess I wanted to take this opportunity maybe to first take a step back about the potential role of the web in this space of the metaverse, and then maybe a step forward on how to concretely have an impact there. So first, in terms of the vision of the immersive web, you may all be familiar that the idea is to make the web a platform for deploying XR and AR and VR applications and services. And when you look at where the web is coming from, what the web was created for initially, and what's one of the key roles it still plays almost 30 years later, it's really about connecting disparate systems together, making them work in a way that would traditionally have been done in completely separate platform, providing a unique platform where all these systems can work together through a common shared basis. And so I guess my vision for the immersive web is that what we are calling the metaverse really is what the web wants to be, what the web aspires to be. Connecting these different universes into a single way where you can navigate from one to the other. That's what we do today through these 2D screens. That's what we do imperfectly when we use WebXR in 3D environments. And the vision is for the web to be the platform where the metaverse can be anchored. That doesn't mean the metaverse would be limited to usage inside web browsers, no more than you're limited to using internet services via the browser. But the web platform, web browsers provide a critical anchoring for anything that happens on the internet. You know that whatever online service you want to use, you'll be able to use it in a web browser in almost 99.9% of cases. And so I guess my claim here is that as we look at what it means to bring interoperability to the metaverse, how we make the metaverse possible, I don't think there is a metaverse without interoperability, then we need to make sure the web can lead the way into this interoperability, that the web provides the basic primitives that are needed to create this type of interoperability. Last time, Chris mentioned the early exploration that happened around navigation in WebXR spaces, the challenges that exist in making that possible in a safe and privacy-friendly way. And in general, my perspective, moving now from the vision to the concrete next steps, how do you actually make it happen on the web? How do you make the web this platform for bringing this kind of capabilities of traversing the metaverse? I would say build the map that was mentioned earlier, have this long-term vision of where you want to go. Imagine that you're Christopher Columbus trying to reach India, but then you might end up discovering America, which might not be such a bad thing. What I mean by that is it needs to go one step at a time. You need to have a goal. You need to make sure you get quick wins with achieving some of these goals. And boiling the ocean is probably not the right way to approach the problem. So in particular, when I hear issues around sharing avatar, if you want to share avatar across any kind of application, then you're not going to succeed because some applications will have very different needs in terms of what they want for user representations. If you focus, for instance, in this very specific case of social XR or immersive communication, then you have a very concrete space where you can get probably quicker wins that can then expand to newer spaces. So my advice, my experience based on standardization needs is start small, have the big vision, but approach it incrementally with small steps. My colleague Francois, who is also on this call, and I are exploring right now what various stakeholders in this space want or need in terms of interoperability for the metaverse on the web. So we are extremely pleased to be part of this conversation and hope this is the start of a conversation.
Thank you so much for your leadership here. I've put some links to both the standards groups and the working groups and community groups. It does seem like this is part of our connecting tissue, and we want people participating where we can boil the ocean in our smaller dose.
All right. Hi, everybody. Super excited about this group. I'm super passionate about kind of an open, interconnected metaverse, and I didn't know this group existed. And Tiri let us know, and I was like, I was trying to start this sort of get folks together to start to build this. So excited that you guys are already way ahead and have got such a collection of folks. So just super quickly, I mean, we're kind of a 3D web page, 3D metaverse. So Spatial's like a. This is just, we run on the web, mobile, and VR, AR. So cross-device. This is my little avatar, and these are virtual worlds that people can build. This is a 3D museum, a 3D version of the Hermitage people have built that I'm in here. And what we try to really piggyback on the web. You can copy a link, share it, and so anyone can kind of jump in here. What we've built, we've started to build out some of the componentry for interoperability already, and would love to get folks' thoughts on that. So you can see in here, folks can drop 3D portals into the world. And right now they're just portals to other spatial rooms. And so I can drop a portal to various rooms, but we would love to make these, like I can click into this and I'll go into that room. We would love to, start to build and make these interoperable to other metaverses and other applications. We think that we can just piggyback on URLs, and if there's any folks here on the call who'd like to to do this, we'd love to do that with you. What are the components of an open interoperable metaverse? I think there's 3 things from our perspective that you need. So this is just a quick overview of Spatial. This is like, you can jump in with other people, virtual collaborative environments. People are building 3D NFT galleries and things in here, pulling in all kinds of virtual content. I think you need 3 components. You need portals. So you need the ability to link between other metaverses, be able to jump in between the two. You need identity and avatars, and you need an open interoperable marketplace. Ideally, if you buy stuff in one metaverse, you really want it to work elsewhere, right? I think now for us, we have a couple of solutions. Like we just started to kind of build, I guess, and and kind of figure out the mistakes as we go, I guess. But on portals, like I said, we just kind of piggyback on hyperlinks. I just plop through a portal here and I'm in another virtual world. And we would love to really, again, work with anyone here to bring these. We'd love if these are cross metaverse and just piggybacking on URLs. On identity and avatars, we currently have our own avatar system, although Ready Player Me, who's on the call, hi Kaspar, we are planning to implement this next year in Q1 likely, where that is a version of an avatar system that you could, if you have your one set of avatars, that is actually cross metaverse. You can actually jump into that. When you jump into that portal, you could actually have that same identity on the other side and that same avatar. So that's one solution for it, which is quite nice. On the marketplace side, I don't know if there's been much discussion in this group on that, but the way we're thinking about it is, and one potential solution we have is a on-chain decentralized marketplace in an open format. So later, actually next week, we're actually minting our first spatial virtual spaces. And that's these two spaces here. One's a virtual gallery and one's kind of a pretty cool virtual house. And these will be on-chain and decentralized from us. So even if we go out of business, this is yours. It lives on chain in an open format using GLTF, GLB, open skybox and things like that. And so the cool thing here is now this can be consumed, this virtual environment, it's not beholden to spatial. It can be consumed by any metaverse, and if we can identify kind of a standard format here that folks can consume these in, then we can have a really easy way to have this kind of open marketplace where I can buy, we can buy these 3D models anywhere and they work anywhere. And so if there's any folks on the call, would absolutely love to work on making these things interoperable, because I think it'll be a beautiful world if you can just kind of shift between worlds. And the blockchain gives us, I think Rene alluded to it a little bit, blockchain gives us a pretty cool way to do that in a decentralized way that's interoperable. So that's all let me just check my notes. Yeah, that's all. That's the main kind of piece of my what I want to kind of convey. Super excited for any partners who are ready to do this. And we're already web and mobile. VR is a little trickier. We have a few things on the web and mobile side that we can kind of piggyback on, but VR, we've got to get some of those deep links and things going. But yeah, that's it for me.
Oh, deep links. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but that was fantastic. Anand, thank you. I see a lot of potential fruitful R&D coming out of this. I definitely want to stay in touch with you from some of us at OMI and the independent R&D community. And Alvin, we're going to bring you in next. Speaking of fantastic research and development now coming to the public. Alvin, it's all yours.
Thank you. Thanks, Evo. And, appreciate you guys inviting us. I really think this is a huge and important conversation that you're having with doing more interoperability. And I just wanted to share a little bit about what HTC has been doing. And, we've been a huge supporter, as you know, of having a more open metaverse and open VR ecosystem. We have our own hardware, which everybody knows, but we also have the most open app store in the Vive port. It's available on every hardware platform today. We support the arts with our Vive Arts program. We've done over 50 projects with artists and museums around the world, taking physical artworks and putting it into the VR world. We have our Vive Originals program that's won multiple Venice and Cannes Film Awards in the VR space. We have our Vive Land, which is taking kind of a physical incarnation of some of the things that are happening in VR, and our Vive Studios that creates content. ViveX has spent we've invested in over 120 companies in the last 5 years to try to create all the pieces of this metaverse. And the Vive Wave program, which we've supported over 10 different hardware manufacturers around the world to have a common VR kind of operating system layer, and as well as enabling them to be able to use all the Viveport content. We've even given accessories to some of the companies to help them get up to market faster so they can hit different price points for products. And our Vive suites that we launched last year, which takes together 5 different apps from 5 different companies and they're all interoperable and they have common single ID. So the things that we're doing there is really the beginning of, I think, what you guys are trying to do to create different worlds, interoperability between different worlds. And we even allow it to have the ability to have companies put in their own sign-on as well. So it's a much more open type model than any other systems out there today. We have events for doing offline, taking offline events and putting them into VR. We've been in the crypto and kind of hard wallet space with our Exodus project. So we do have, I think, experiences in that crypto space that will be very significant and important as we move into the metaverse. And of course, with our telecom tradition, we've been working with carriers around the world to enable cloud-based VR and 5G VR and edge systems and even PC streaming in your home to allow the devices to get much smaller, to allow capabilities to be taken off of these devices so that it becomes all-day wear. Right? So we're trying to enable a lot of the pieces that will be needed to have a full metaverse. So one of the things I do want to emphasize is that we don't see the metaverse actually replacing the internet. We see it as something that enhances and expands the internet. So all the things that the internet will have will continue to be there. But as we move from the internet to the metaverse, we will go from more vendor-specific IDs and profile pictures to universal IDs, universal avatars, going from websites to worlds and experiences, going from text, pictures, and videos to essentially 3D everything. Going from short videos to live streaming videos, going from consuming and rating people as your main actions on the internet to engaging and immersing and inhabiting these virtual worlds so that you're spending real quality time there, and expanding the device options from the current PCs and tablets and phones to XR devices, which you can still use your existing content, even existing hardware, even to watch and use your 3D content, 3D worlds, but you're going to get a much better immersive experience with the VR devices or AR devices. And we're moving our interface models from a touchscreen and mouse and keyboard to full natural interfaces. I think that's going to be huge in terms of enabling much larger audience to be able to access this. In fact, our economic and business models will change from being ads driven or selling content or selling physical goods to virtual commerce. And in fact, adding in, I think, a potential extension of the current play to earn to be a live to earn type model where people spend time in these virtual worlds and they get paid for it. I think it can become a significant commerce model or economic model for a lot of people around the world. And using fiat currencies and in-game currencies today will move to probably cryptos and CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies, particularly in places like China where crypto right now is illegal. So CBDC will likely be the common payment models, and then using NFTs to validate your assets, and it should be wallets instead of wall, and having common wallets as well. And moving from independent apps and walled gardens, we're going to go to an interconnected open world. So I'm really looking forward to that full metaverse experience that will be coming fairly soon. And I think the key important thing is, we're going to be spending less time liking and getting followers and getting our sense of status from that, from having real world experiences that creates real memories and creates real friendships that we collect just as we do in the real world. That's going to make the metaverse feel a lot more like the real world than the internet is today, which is really just too much of a gap between what we feel, what we see, and what we do in the internet today. But that a lot of those gaps and barriers are going to get removed as we move into a more metaverse first type of a world. And we look forward to all the supporting all the things that you guys are doing and creating common standard, because I think that's hugely important to enabling all of this to happen.
You've given us so much to think about. The interconnected open worlds that you are describing here is exactly why we're here. But it seems that that's going to require many of us to potentially move our work one step forward or make some commitments to make that potential realized. Do you see that happening already in your work?
Yeah, I mean, there's already, the things that Neil's been doing with all the OpenXR. I think those are definitely going to be helpful, and there will definitely be a number of nonprofit organizations or consortiums that will be created that will allow us to have that interoperability. And we all the things that the world has been doing to enable an interoperable internet, we'll have those same models here. And having DNS systems and URLs and all the different communication protocols, we will have similar types of models that will happen as well on this new metaverse. And
it seems that some of these things are already being implemented. For example, what Kaspar is working on here. These are the first steps toward that full interoperability. Is that how you see this moving forward?
Absolutely, and that's why I'm here, because I feel like you guys are really taking a pioneering spirit in terms of helping this to happen. And the industry is actually pretty cooperative in terms of wanting this to happen. I mean, I think most people understand that a network is as valuable as the square of its node. So the bigger the network, the more value it is. And having closed systems will always, in the long term, lose out to an open, interconnected system.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Alvin.
No
And
worries.
Kaspar, that's a great lead in for you. Thank you for joining us today.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. I have a proper presentation made for this, but then I actually share some of the slides that we already have, so I can run through some of them at least. Can you see my screen?
We do. Yes, you look great.
Awesome. So I'm Kaspar. I'm working on Ready Plan Me as a company. We've been around for over 7 years now, really trying to think about this topic about avatars and bringing avatars into multiple different environments for a really, really long time already. Ready Plan Me, in short, is essentially like a cross-app avatar platform. So one of the key components of what we're trying to do here is give users an interoperable avatar, something that they can use across many different environments, because we do believe that the future of metaverse, it's not like a single application, it's more rather like interconnected. And for developers to support something like this, there's not really an easy way. So, our experience over the past 7 years has taught us that it's really hard to force certain technical standards across people. So what Ready Plan Me does on many equations is it does the backend work of converting the avatar files to support what the developer actually requires on their own. So they don't need to change too much on their own product side. And we've been working really hard to make it really seamless for a developer in case they kind of wanna have an avatar solution in their game. In terms of Ready Plan Me as a platform, we don't really care what type of is it the web, Unity, mobile, desktop. We try to support everything, and the avatar solution itself, it lives inside someone else's product, so we don't want to force it to someone to go somewhere else outside the product itself. So we basically, what we're doing is we're building a lot of tools around avatars for developers. The first tool that we've created here is an avatar editor that creates avatars based on a selfie that developers can integrate into their own product. So now they have an avatar solution that they can offer to the users. On top of this, we're building a lot of additional layers like content APIs, so developers can have their own custom content into the avatar editors, and additional features like render APIs, which enable you to take the avatar that you've created from that particular user and turn it into a sticker pack or profile pictures or a moving GIF, so you can move outside of your 3D environment, but still provide utility for the user who may want to use their avatar for, like everyday messaging or something like this. So one of the key components there is to just provide really easy access for a developer and make it, usable in many different places for the end user. So yeah, I think Ready Play Me today is used by over close to 1,000 companies, everyone from VR to social to gaming to dating. Yeah, so what you basically can see here is different kind of like stickers and that user was able to generate out of their avatar. So you've brought the avatar outside of the platform, which is really important for the interoperability, being able to take it outside to different applications that you want. And there's definitely a lot of different games, a lot of the technical side of the assets. We're relying on formats like GLDF and trying to kind of like build on top of build on top of stuff that's already built, and not reinvent the wheel, and really focus on being like an infrastructure layer rather than building our own experience. So there's a bunch of different experiences, but maybe to kind of stop sharing my screen for a second and show you how it works live is any kind of application that's supported by Ready Play Me, you could now take your avatar from one experience to other. So for example, now if I were to go to Somnium Space, I can join as a guest. I can change my avatar. I can take Ready Play Me, and my avatar there is loaded. It gives me a selection of avatars that I already made for different environments. I can select the one that I made for VR chat, and now I have the same avatar that I had in VR chat converted to Somnium Space technical specs, so we can have that particular avatar that I was just using in VR chat a couple of hours ago in Somnium Space once it finishes loading. And that's really how we envision like providing interoperability for the end users who want to have one consistent avatar across many different experiences.
I love this.
Thank you so much, Kaspar. Sorry, we're trying to keep the schedule here. That was terrific, and that's exactly what we want to see is the examples of approaches that have worked and have been successful, and there's no denying the success of what you guys have had. The numbers of the customers that you signed are just mind-boggling. Unfortunately, Gabriel Rene sends his regrets. I got an email from him at the top of the show. However, our friend Gabe Baker is on deck here, and he's going to pop in and give his thoughts on interoperability. So thank you so much, Kaspar. Really appreciate you showing up and what you shared with us. Have it.
Yeah,
enjoy the rest.
Thank you.
Hey, y'all. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. Gabe here from Frame. We make a WebXR collaboration app, just framevr.io. I don't need to get too much into kind of what Frame is beyond that, I don't think. I do want to say, though, that we're just like with Anand, very motivated to kind of try to figure this out. I mean, with Spatial, we've seen users on Twitter being like, can we figure out how to move from Frame to Spatial? And it's sort of like, okay, let's figure it out. It's like, it's time. Because we're both using links, it actually just should be easy for us to do it. It's not like a technical challenge at this stage per se. It's more of like a kind of a motivation and look, let's do it. So in our next release, which comes out later today, fingers crossed, in our go-to menu in Frame, which I hope you all can see, but we have a little navigation menu, and it's very simple. We used to make it so you could only put links to other frames in here. It was like you can move from frame to frame. We are now changing this so that if you want to put a link to a Spatial build or anything else that works with a link, you'll actually be able to just drop it right into the go-to menu. And this also works from VR as well. Now, we don't have those nice, fancy, spherical little portals that Anand showed from Spatial. They're gorgeous. I love them. We'll get there, but just the fundamentals are here in terms of, look, put your destinations here, put that link anywhere you'd like, even if it's outside of Frame, Mozilla Hubs, Spatial, anything you got. So we're super geared up about this. And for us, the next, thinking ahead, like, let's imagine a future where we all have this set up. I'd love for my friends list to be able to show me which world people are in. right? It's like you figured out traversal, but now in my friends list, I'd love to see, okay, is Ben in Spatial? Is Ben in Engage? So to make a step towards this, and I know this is going to take a lot of collective steps from this whole group, but we're integrating with a login service called Immerse Space, which kind of provides this like authentication wrapper across a few different tools. Anyone that chooses to use it, we're just making a stand and saying, look, let's see if others get on board with this. And basically what this will let you do is in your friends or connection list, not only will you see people, but you'll be able to see what other destinations in the metaverse they are located at, with a nice little link there so that you could just pop right in to see them. So, oh, Ben is in this hubs build, boom, go there right from frame, and vice versa. So I don't think I have too much more to say than that. Ben, I didn't have too much time to prepare for this. It kind of came in on the fly, but Anand, I have an action item. Let's link up, let's figure things out. Our release later today lets you add other destinations to our go-to menu. We're trying to branch beyond a frame insular mesh of connectedness. Okay, over and out.
That's exciting. Wait, so tell me what you just said. Today's update.
Today's update in the go-to menu in Frame, which you can access from desktop or VR, you can link out to other destinations in the metaverse that are not Frame. Previously, you could only put links to other frames in here. It was like, okay, go to another frame. Now we're saying, look, you want to go to a hubs build, you want to go to Spatial, go for it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, congratulations and thank you for jumping in last minute, number one. And number two, thank you for doing such great work. I use Frame, I love it. And it's really great to have you here. Also, it's really great to see the collaboration happening here. And that's exactly why we're here. So thank you for jumping in and for being so collaborative, for jumping in.
Thanks for having me.
I think we have Nicole next, is that correct?
Awesome. So I am also just a recent addition. So if you want, I'm not bringing slides. So I'm giving you a break from slideware, and I wanted to talk quickly on really bringing building a human-centric metaverse. Okay, great. I had an echo there for half a second. We really want to bring, the metaverse is, in my definition, like the shortest one. It's the merging of the digital and the physical worlds. Anything that I've seen so far in metaverse, kind of qualifies for that definition. And the essentially, when we were talking about standards, I think part of it is the UX, the first point I wanted to make, and there really are no WIMPs in the metaverse. I gave a talk of this recently at AWE, and WIMPs are a 48-year old paradigm: windows, icons, mice, pointers, and like kind of solo use. And we want to think about things differently in the metaverse when we talk about standards and design parameters. Instead of windows, we want to put content into worlds, like Alvin was saying. Instead of icons and buttons, we want to use objects. Instead of mice, we want to use our hands. And instead of pointers and cursors, we're using avatars. And instead of single player, we really want to make it social. So I just wanted to think about a little bit about the design aspect of designing these metaverse standards. But because things are right now, XR Safety Week is going on. You can see, check that out on another channel. I really wanted to talk about something that's adjacent to the important privacy conversations that are going on, and that's one of mental agency. So I advocate very strongly to expand the notion of privacy to also include, mental agency. So the idea of, to get your mental sovereignty. So basically the idea of having your own sovereignty, your own agency, your own well-being. So what are the goals of this is the new world. And I'm currently reading, The Dawn of Everything. So I'm reading this amazing book. Jerry Michalski and Gil Friend recommended it, highly recommended. I know it's a little daunting, but there are actually short versions expedited versions of this available online as well. But the idea behind this is that the current social media is that what we have done with the use of operant conditioning. I'm a leading expert on emotion in games, so I was the first person to measure emotion on people's faces while they play. And what's happened in those 20 years since I released, almost 20 years since I released that model, the 4 Keys to Fun, is that social media is eroding on our ability on mental agency. And it affects your self-image. If you think about it, it affects your self-image. Using social media can affect your priorities. It affects your focus for the day, your ability to focus. I mean, how many times have you gone onto your phone intending to do one thing and then ended up doing something totally different as you're scrolling 20 minutes later, right, in some other application? And it can also adjust your attention span and your ability to focus. It can deplete mental resources of various kinds, and it can also affect your ability to complete tasks. It can affect your beliefs and friends. So the friends that it recommends are the AIs will recommend often are, achieving the advertiser's objectives. So if you watch the Social Dilemma movie, I think there's some really good points that makes. And as someone on the front lines, I've been in emotion tech for almost two decades now. So it's a definitely very real concern. And so what to do is we really don't live on, we live on planet Earth, ideally in a state of harmony with nature. When we're building this new, not a lot of work there, but we also want to, when we're building the metaverse, we want to not be someone that's just, not design a metaverse where all of our constituents are living in someone else's investment. And so we want to have these conversations like we're having in local communities in the real world. What is going to improve the livability of the metaverse? So something that's entirely based on, financial transactions, NFTs and smart contracts are amazing things, doing amazing things for artists as well. But what is the focus? What is our time? And how is that time spent? And how are the verbs, the actions that you take in that? How are the ways in which you facilitate social interaction? How are those going to not just increase the happiness of the shareholder value of the corporations, because corporations are people, evidently. I don't think so, but what is going to increase? What kinds of interactions are going to increase the human happiness of our citizens in this new world? And in reading The Dawn of Everything, what is that, what was really fascinating is where is this closing idea? Is that where did these concepts come from? The book, that's what the book is asking. The concepts of freedom, equality before the law and in society, liberty, property ownership. Where did these concepts of these truths we hold to be self-evident for us in the United States' Constitution, where did they come from? Well, it turns out, the book argues, is they actually came from indigenous Americans' critique of European society in the late 1600s and 1700s. And so it was the interaction between Native Americans and the settlers in the United States, in what would become the United States. It was in New France at the time. That interaction then boiled over into Europe and caught fire in terms of a lot of really interesting discussions that helped Europe reinvent itself. It helped the founding fathers of the United States, come up with a very different approach for, trying this experiment of democracy. And I think that we are here. I mean, here we are. We are settling down in this new place. There are some residents already. And, but it is a new era. So what are those core values? What are the conversations that we need to sponsor, that we need to foster? In addition to, here are the regulations, or here is the thing, so that we get the great Magna Carta, so that we get the Declaration of Independence, we get the Bill of Rights. Those amazing documents come out of conversation, not of NFTs and technology and avatar interoperability, which are important from the tech side, but the conversations about humans and how can we be more human? How can this experience give us superpowers? How can it be more satisfying? How can it take humanity, evolve humanity to the next level? So that's my contribution. The metaverse really needs to be concerned about mental agency, and it's not just to protect safety is about reduce harm or avoid harm. Privacy is about, I'm going to hold on my data. What can we do what are other concepts that are actually proactive, that are, giving people, empowering people to improve their quality of life, to improve their mental well-being? We need to bake those qualities into the operating system for the metaverse. And the only way to do that is to have conversations, and those conversations start now. So thank you.
You're absolutely right, Nicole. I want to let all of that sink in, because we have a lot of work ahead, making sure that human rights are baked into every aspect of this work, and then that we're making those statements public So I hope people will follow up with you. I know that we are going to continue this conversation, and there are some aspects of this, including identity and self-sovereign identity, that we're going to pull apart in future events as well. So thank you for setting that stage and for helping make sure that we are rooted in our humanness here. Keram, I'm going to pass the mic to you next, and then we have a few other colleagues joining after. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks. Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, good. And you see my screen, right?
Yes, looks
Okay,
great.
so right now, first of all, Nicole, yes, everything that you just said, 100%. Thank you for that. And I remember 25 years ago, maybe longer, when I was living in the land of Lynx and IRC and Veronica and Archie and Gopher, the promise of these like interlinked communities that were just sort of touch points to check in on each other's data, and there was no .com boom or anything like that. And I got back into VR so that I could rekindle that spirit. And so I'm glad that we're here. And I wanted to just show that we're working in WebXR right now. James Baicoianu, who will follow me, is a master in this domain and has been towing the line for a very long time. And I'll let him speak on this later. But in WebXR, what is so powerful is the ability to observe and update things in real time, absolutely, and all patches can be done in situ. And we have been looking at diegetic methods for keeping people oriented and non-language based, symbol driven signage, and considering accessibility and low vision and color contrast and all of those other things that can assist and be of the world. And this is the FIVARS theater, where we are running a bunch of web kiosks that open up into 360 4K stereoscopic ambisonic videos that start in real time, powered by AWS. And James has full integration of the Ready Player Me avatars, head to toe, fully articulated. And then in this world, we have a link out to an eco NFT gallery running in crypto voxels that goes right back to FIVARS. But here's where things start to be interesting, because I come in here and I look like this and it's not quite right, but it was just a single click hop. To get back, I'm just going to hit the back button. And now I'll show you what happens when I go to the VRTO portal. This is the conference that we run. This is in a white label Mozilla Hub's cloud. We were one of their first clients starting at the beginning of 2020, and have done a few things. I don't remember what is vanilla anymore, what we've modded, but one of the things that we built in here was this gallery that was designed by Pearl Hyacinth, in this case, Melody Owen. And it's basically a bunch of portals to galleries in other meta worlds. So you've got like New Art City and Crypto Voxels and Styly and other hubs worlds and Decentraland. And you think, wow, this is so great. Just like this central portal, I can go everywhere. And then you click on it and it'll open in a new tab. And it's like, oh, how do I log in here now? So I go back here and then I'll go over to Styly, and then this has got it. I mean, we know this problem. Like it's not just all of the gates and the methods and all of that, but it's also that the locomotion schemes are inconsistent. And so we're always trying to brown box our way towards this path. One thing that we did here is that our rooms all open inline, and we simply bypass the need, and every time we switch rooms, to re-register ourselves and rejoin the room. And we even had it hacked so that when you were in VR or desktop mode, you could simply phase through a portal. You wouldn't even have to accept it. You would just literally seamlessly move from one room to the next without even clicking on the portal. We just simply have to create a branching like a Boolean that'll say, are you on desktop mode? Are you in mobile mode? Or are you in a headset mode? Because I would fix it for desktop, and then Kent Bai would say, hey, I have to take my headset every time I want to go between rooms. And then we have these kind of grids of spaces that you can jump between. And again, they don't open in a new tab and they're fairly consistent. But one of the things that I guess the reason I got invited to this elite group where I feel, you know, a little bit like the small guy is that we've been practically doing these events in this way for 2 years now, and like really getting people from all over the world who have very different degrees of familiarity with this and watching how they adopt and how they learn. And when we're working in the FSE world, which is this one here built in on the Janus engine. Oh, let me go back. So here you can see our little.
And we're going to be bringing up James from Janus next. So this is a great
Yeah.
segment here. This is R&D in action, right?
Exactly right. So the point is just, you know, getting a sense of like here we created this this little pre-loading room where you can see that you have a mirror. And at first, you know, people didn't realize that this was a mirror. So I had to hit escape, say, oh, okay, hit escape. But again, it's part of the design of the world to help you slowly discover and orient yourself. And then once you've chosen your avatar and done all that kind of stuff, you are able to just jump in with either, you know, just observing on a screen and a mic, enter in VR, etc. The main thing I'll leave like philosophically is that I want to ensure, hey, James, I want to ensure that, you know, we have implemented high fidelity VoIP here, and we've got the Ready Player Me implementation, and Ready Player Me said, hey, we've got this new monetization scheme, but what are your daily active users? And I thought, well, I'm a festival. I only run a couple of times a year. Daily active users is really shouldn't be like the benchmark by which integration with that is measured. And similarly, High Fidelity sent us an email this week that said, hey, by the way, that free dev thing you've been doing now, it's going to cost $10. And I think to myself, what are we building here? Because this is going to become unachievable or unattainable for people who don't have lots of money rolling in, and they're building upon these central systems that are eventually going to become piled on and piled on. The reason I love Janus so much is because, well, mainly because of James's volunteering this for the last 5 years or 6 years, but is the fact that it's a MIT license and we're extending upon their open source code to create new use cases that improve and tighten up the system. So I'll just leave it there for now, but thank you all for.
Huge, and thank you for showing the research. You are absolutely demonstrating what we're talking about here today. And James, this is a great segue for you. We're going to stop that screen share, but that gives you a little bit of a sample. And James, if you could share with us a little bit of the amazing work you've been doing at Janus. Great to see you here today. You're muted.
Let's see where I go. There we go.
There you
Can you
go.
hear me now? All right, I'm going to try to share my screen here. I didn't really have some official slides, but I think I can make this work. Is that coming through?
We see your slides, yes.
All right, cool. Yeah, so you know, Keram, thanks for showing off the Janus world there, and there's a lot of overlap there with what I'm going to show here. Just going to talk about kind of some of the stuff we've implemented that other platforms have also implemented. There's a lot of kind of specs either in draft or in various stages of implementation. One of the ones that we implement, A-Frame implements, CryptoVoxels, a few others out there, is the W33 WebXR navigation spec. And it's really easy to add this to your engine, the session granted event, that when you cross through one of these portals between two different platforms, you're able to capture that event and kind of, without dropping someone out of VR, you can go through these portals. And so I know people were kind of surprised when they were using the FIVARS experience on their quests, and they were able to just kind of drop right through into CryptoVoxels, you know, without being kind of kicked out of VR. And so I think some of them were kind of surprised by that. The downside here is it requires browser implementations, and that's currently only available in Oculus browser. So, you know, anyone who is using Index or anything in Chrome or Firefox, Firefox WebXR support obviously needs work. But so we're really dependent on browsers to implement these specs in order for the web frameworks to really be able to make use of those. Obviously, there's other organizations working on specs. IEEE is working on some things like the Spatial Context Awareness API. And that's important for being able to kind of build objects that you can kind of take between these platforms and drop them into the world. And the world, like one of the main difficulties, bringing objects, like static objects between worlds. We have GLTF. GLTF is awesome for that. But they're static objects. They have no awareness of the scenes around them. They can't really provide interactivity. And so these type of APIs can become the kind of groundwork upon which we build more interactivity. So you can see here, we're talking about object sharing, the two layers. So GLTF makes it possible to bring the objects, but they're just static objects. And there's been kind of, some groups have built extensions on top of that. Like there's a VRM avatars, which make it easier to share. It's GLTF based, but it provides, uses a GLTF extension to embed some additional information about your avatar, bone names, licensing information, things like that. And Mozilla Hubs as well has some extensions for various animations that are added to the avatars. And Microsoft also has some GLTF extensions for specifying both for world properties and for, I believe they have some avatar extensions as well. But again, those are all relatively, like they're non-interactive. The interactive behavior is where it really gets difficult. So that's, we're talking about being able to embed behaviors written in JavaScript or WebAssembly. And again, this is where APIs like the IEEE Object Awareness can help. Right now, if you want to build, I can build a custom element for Janus, but if I want that same functionality in A-Frame, I have to re-implement it all with A-Frame's APIs and A-Frame, scene queries and things like that. So that becomes very difficult. You're essentially duplicating the work for every platform, which is kind of what we're trying to avoid. But as Keram showed, there's a lot of implementations out there which don't rely on standards. And I think that's important. There's always this kind of argument back and forth about we need standards. Oh no, standards just slow us down. And the reality is we need both. We need people out there who are experimenting with what they can build today without having to go through a formalized standard process. And then those implementations feed back into the development of the standards. So on the web, as Keram showed, we already have one-way links. There's kind of some conventions about how we do those. Like he showed, hubs currently, if you click those links, they open in a new tab. And then on the receiving end, there's no, like a lot of these platforms don't implement, they don't drop you right into the 3D world. They show you the 2D interface, and then from there you have to drop into 3D. So, like Spatial IO and Frame VR are talking about, well, let's add these links directly into deep links into our 3D worlds. Let's do that. Let's all kind of get together and do that and build. In the background here, I've got this. There we go. So this is actually a world that was built in 2017 or so. Why am I controls? All right, well, prototypes are always a little bit buggy here. So this is a hub world that was built in Janus back in 2017 that now is running in our web client. And this kind of links out to a bunch of different other Janus worlds. But there's no reason that these portals here couldn't go to A-Frame worlds or Frame VR, anything like that. So you can see we can just kind of walk into there and it starts to load the world around us. And here we are, now we're in this other world. Again, this is a Janus world, but there's no reason it couldn't be any other platform. And so I think we just need to start building, start showing off the capabilities that we have available to us now. There's a lot of additional information we want to be able to carry through. And that's kind of one of the most discussed topics. OMI and other groups are all kind of talking about this. A lot of potential options there. We got blockchain comes up a lot, W3C, DID. There's independent implementations. I've been working with XR Engine people on this idea I'm calling MetaConduit, which is like an API where two websites can kind of open a channel, directly between them and kind of pass information back and forth in a cross-origin friendly way. So again, I think it's important for these platforms to all do that experimentation and then feed that into these groups that are working on standardizing it and formalizing it. And kind of I'm going out of order here, but
James, you've been doing such a fantastic job of jumping in and helping to really enable that research to happen. And I hope over the holidays we can do some more of this, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 MetaTraversal experimentation and really demo what different methods might look like. And thank you. Thank you for showing how all of this fits together. Tiri, I'm hoping you can help us sort of fit all of these pieces together and see next steps.
Well, I wanted to see if I can do my screen sharing here, and then we'll go for that. Let's see here. Oh, where's the right one? There we go. And go full screen. Second. Okay. So I think you should be able to see me now. So hi, everybody. I'm Tiri Schussler. I'm the Senior Director of Spatial Computing at Deutsche Telekom. I work in the United States, but I work for the German organization, and I also engaged quite a lot with the T-Mobile US division of the company. So, I've been focusing a lot on, how we as a telco can be an enabler for delivering on the promise of the metaverse. I'm starting to think of it as meta life, because I really start looking ahead a bit into how we're going to hybridize the way we live in the real world with the way we'll live with the digital world, and how that's going to fluidly start to blend together on a daily and sort of concurrent basis. So, today, as we look at Matthew Ball's sort of core attributes of the metaverse, what I'm focusing on are these two highlighted areas. So first is the identity and interoperability, which is really what's been driving the conversation that has resulted in, the last 2 sessions with you all. And then, on an implementation level, as a designer of our user experiences, I've been really focusing a lot on how I can work with other operators and other core players in the industry to create democratization of access. So this has, been realized mostly in thinking about the devices first, in terms of, making sure that the device ecosystem players are mindful of the developers and mindful of the users, in terms of making sure that there's an ability for the developer to build and deliver to multiple devices. In the case of the user, to not have to go through a complete relearning, a brand new journey every time they get a new hardware device, even though it's still VR. As somebody mentioned earlier, just the idea of locomotion being inconsistent is a huge problem. And then even within ecosystems, we see inconsistencies on top of that. So it creates a lot of confusion, and the onboarding and first-time user flow right now is highly frictional. So it's something that I've been really thinking about, and also generally accessibility, looking at ways that we can make the environments more accessible to people with different physical contexts, mental contexts, visual impairment, and so forth. So these are areas that I think are high priority areas for us, because they are areas that we need to start on right away. There are specific areas that I've been focusing on within our business and within discussions with other operators that are key challenges that we need to focus on early on. And we've been talking about, heavily about, traversal between systems and identity, but there are some other very important ones, things like government regulations and politics, dealing with cultural standards, dealing with legal and privacy issues. And I know as mentioned earlier, there's the XRSI stuff that's going on, which is highly important to pay attention to. And then also the aspects of ownership. There's interesting things going on even in the NFT space about, do I own the NFT, but do I own the copyright with it? And what does that mean in terms of my ability to take my investment and do something more with it, or create further, ecosystems? And then of course, all the transition that's happening with fiat and crypto, and how that might be something that we can facilitate. So telcos today really are already active in the core of the enabling layers of metaverse as an experience. You know, I focus personally for the last several years on 5G and edge compute ecosystem enablement. But I also look ahead at things like Wi-Fi sensing and how we can use that as a way to potentially allow hand gestures in an open space to be trackable without even needing a device with camera or infrared or other kinds of sensors. We're looking ahead at how we can enable a better performance experience. It was mentioned as Rene was showing this great example early on of collaborating with somebody in Germany and the US, and the latency issues that come to play when you start dealing with a global ecosystem. You know, some of those things you can't really do much about because we have the reality of you know, the speed of light, but we also have the ability to make that experience better by creating interoperability standards between telcos. And so things that I focus on there are things like, you know, network slicing, creating agreements that if one telco's going to create a dedicated experience for a user with a certain kind of performance, bandwidth, or latency, that that will be respected by another operator. So if I'm trying to connect from, you know, Deutsche Telekom to, you know, Vodafone or Telefonica or even, you know, AT&T, that the flow of the user traffic will be properly respected on both ends of the network connection. And that's something that's going to take some, you know, negotiating and effort, similar to the way that we've dealt with things like data roaming agreements, or even SMS for that matter, and how important that has become in enabling communication. So this is an area that we really heavily focus on right now.
The essence of global collaboration at the base
Yep.
level. Thank you so much, Perey.
Yep. Absolutely.
And Neil, we're going to bring you in. So grateful for all of you. Thank you for joining us today.
Please unmute.
Neil, we've got you muted.
I think I'd have that by now.
Yeah, we've got you. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I know we're out of time. So I just wanted to say it's, you know, so awesome to see so many people here that I admire. So much awesome work ongoing, and we all share the same vision to make it interoperable and open. I only have one slide. I want to put this up. I wasn't going to show any slides, but James, you're exactly right, and Anand and Kaspar, and the work that you're doing, the you know, GLTF, it is a static format, but we are now actively working on transforming GLTF from a 3D asset to what we're calling a metaverse asset that will have interactivity baked in, physics attributes for simulations, you know, better support for avatars. So the green, this is all in discussion. The green ring here is the kind of things we're talking about. None of this is decided. And just as importantly, the gray ring is stuff we're saying we're absolute Kronos is not going to do. We need to hand off to other folks that know a lot more than we do about these, you know, outer rings of activity. So I'm looking forward to using, you know, this forum to start gathering input and feedback on, you know, where GLTF should go next. I'm looking forward to the plenary meeting we have planned for the 12th. We can continue the discussion.
Thanks, Neil.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Ben, do you want to bring it all together?
Well, first, I want to thank everybody. That was just a stunning presentation across the board. There's so many different dimensions. So I'd like to thank the entire list of speakers, Christine Perey, Rene Schulte, Dominique Hazael-Massieux, Alvin Graylin, Anand Agarawala, Kaspar Tiri, Gabe Baker, Nicole Lazzaro, Keram Maliki-Sanchez, James Baicoianu, and to my co-conveners, Tiri and Neil, thank you so much for putting this together, and great job as always, Evo. Thank you for holding this down. It's been a tremendously important discussion, and I can't wait to mine this one for sound bites. We're just a couple of minutes over here, so thank you all for coming. This has been MetaTraversal 2. And we are looking to have another event in January, what we're calling the plenary. These were just sort of preparatory meetings because we wanted to hear this. We'd be very interested, and I'm going to leave the chat open for a moment. If you have particular ideas you want to just throw in the chat for what you'd like to see in the next discussion, please do. We haven't really started in earnest planning this yet. As you know, this has sort of come together on a couple of weeks' notice in both occasions. We do have a month runway with the holidays in between to work on this. So we would love to get your input. Feel free to email us if you have it individually. You can also use metatraversal@gmail.com, the official email address of MetaTraversal. And so thank you again, everybody. Have a very wonderful, safe, and happy holidays. And this has been Erwin. And back to you, Evo, to close it out.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much, Ben, and all of you for making the time today. We will do our best to make this recording available. We hope that you will join us, and that can be on Twitter, on Discord, on different communities where this is actively happening. And please let us know if you've got fantastic projects that you want us to jump in on, because as you can see, there are many of us here who are ready to collaborate and jump in and test things together. So feel free to reach out to me. I am Evo @Immeration, but also on Twitter @open_metaverse if you want to reach out to the community at OMI. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be back in January. Also, if you have great topics for these conversations, please bring them to the table, and we'll do our best to bring them to the public and be a part of creating this open metaverse and public commons together. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.